Go for it.
Welcome to Captive Audience Podcast, everyone. It's Wednesday, which means Don and I are on mic, and we're happy to be here and happy to have everybody here with us. It's been, lots and lots have been going on, both in the world and in our lives, and so we just thank you very much for taking a little bit of your time to be with us tonight. What do you? I could launch in, Don, but
yeah, I'll just say a quick word. Yeah, just a quick word. Then we'll have you hop in. I'm up in Tacoma, Washington today, and I'm up at the retreat center for the Archdiocese. It's just beautiful up here. The church bells are going off, and whenever church bells go off, I feel good. So it's 1,800 hours to go military time, and so with that, I'll let Leslie kick it off, and we'll rumble as usual. Feel free to hit the chat line and tell us what you think, and we'll respond as we can. So Leslie, take her away. Hello, Leslie, are you frozen there? Okay, go for it, Leslie. You got frozen for a moment. Who knows?
The last I heard, bells were ringing, and that was a good place to be. So I'm glad I got frozen there. Yeah. There were a couple things that caught my eye on the AI front this week. In particular, BlackRock had a press release where they were talking about $100 million philanthropic initiative to expand economic opportunity and power in the next generation of America's skilled trade workers. So basically, as they're acknowledging that infrastructure is needing to be built and they're investing in that infrastructure, they're recognizing that we do not have enough skilled tradespeople in order to fill the jobs to support and run the infrastructure. So current need is over 5%. Let's see, how did they say this? Over the next decade, employment in the United States infrastructure-related skilled trades is projected to grow by more than 5%, outpacing the national average of 3%. So, $100 million BlackRock is actually investing in, electricians, HVAC workers, plumbers, people that can build data centers, all the things. Right. So you can imagine that everyone who's involved in some of that workforce readiness and workforce pipeline, which is, every community college out there, every university, university system out there, every, economic development department, chamber of commerce, high schools, everyone is looking at how can we now potentially, access new funding in order to upskill our people. So yeah, all of those stupid majors that we've been hearing about are not only not necessary, but even less necessary now. They're going to have to go back to school.
Defund the universities. That's what we ought to be defunding.
Well, by default, that's what we're doing, right? I mean, right. Unless they somehow get into some sort of like bachelor's degree in electrical work. But I mean, Anyway, I think it's going to be great. It's going to be great. And, I always thought of BlackRock as the bad guys, but they're doing something really cool, even if it's out of their own, self-interest. That's fine. So they're partnering with union, trade unions, and it's going to be good for all of us.
Yeah.
What do you think, Don?
Well, at the end of the day, people, they respond to incentives. I think one of the things I just find so heartwarming about this, it's heartwarming on multiple levels, because I think that one of the things that the elites were trying to do was basically gut the center of the country and make us reliant and not be able to be independent. So the more interdependent these countries are, the more power it gives to them. The last thing in the world they want to see is a superpower United States able to be independent on itself, because we're not reliant on them. They can't pull the strings and make the calls. And so now we have an America that's gone back to being the old muscular America that came out of World War II, where working class and middle class kids can get jobs that are and able to buy their first homes and able to have a career and not be in system and not be communized by that system, because You have to go to their schools like to get these degrees. There is nothing more heartwarming than to see that Americans building their own stuff, which means we can remain an independent country. And and you see that just and then we're the only country in the world that's capable of doing that. And for those who would say, are we behaving like the old colonizing countries of old? No, we're not taking these countries over. But if we didn't do what we were doing, and I'm sure we'll get around to talking about the war and that sort of thing in a moment, then someone else would be stepping in to fill that vacuum. That vacuum just will be filled. And would you rather have it filled by atheistic communism? I don't think so. Would you rather have it filled by the mullahs? I don't think that's a viable option either. And last but not least, would you want it filled by the one world power clan? I don't think that's a viable option either. So I'd rather have it filled by Judeo-Christian, constitutional, free-loving United States of America. And so I'm good with that.
Absolutely. I mean, having a populace that's self-sufficient, that knows how to repair things, that knows how to build things, that, I mean, we literally need to rebuild our civilization. And so that's what's going to be happening. And I think it also, so it not only challenges the universities, it challenges this idea of like communism and, we're all in it together. No, we're not really.
Yeah.
Some people aren't in it for us, right? But but I think what it also does is it kind of challenges that narrative that we need immigrants because Americans just won't do the jobs that are necessary. And that's just not true. I mean,
that is an absolute lie. And it's funny, they don't raise that argument anymore very much. One of the arguments they used to use was that, so there's the one, they do jobs that Americans won't do. As racist as that is, they don't use that very much anymore. They also use the argument that they are a net positive in terms of the economy, when obviously they're net negative because of what they're taking out is a lot more than they're putting in. And then, of course, there's all the things that we see going out that's now evident to everyone. It's and the last piece, the cultural fit piece. You cannot get past that, and I think that's another one that's so self-evident. And people, let's face it, people who are Christian need to speak up and just say it. People coming from non-Christian cultures, Christian countries, cannot fit in here. It does not work, particularly if they're coming from the Middle East. It doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, we're finding that out. Did you hear that there was a call to prayer at the 9/11 memorial in New York?
I'm not surprised, but no, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, I had heard that. I didn't dig into it, but maybe somebody in the chat wants to comment that was obviously quite distressing.
Well, sure. That's the objective is to create a what they call it I forget what they call it, but they create a Muslim state in the United States. That's what they do everywhere they go. They behave until they get to about a certain percentage of the population, then they just take over. It is not a religion that shares power. It is a political religion.
Yeah.
So it
yeah,
cannot work inside democratic institutions, and that's why you can't nation build with certain nations. So you can nation build. We nation build in Germany, built it back from scratch. Nation built in Japan, built that back from scratch after World War II. Right, a lot of the Eastern European countries, same thing. They came back from scratch. South Korea, same thing. But you can't do it in the Middle East because the culture does not fit. It does not work. The religion itself calls for the elimination. If you're not Muslim, you should be dead. That's none of the other religions call for that. And we all know what the rules are with regard to how women are treated. I mean, we don't need to go over that again. We all know what happens to gays, right? It's it doesn't work. It won't work with democratic institutions. And we see the results. If you look at the direction of immigration, it's never towards those countries. And if you look at the per capita income, we can see what a dramatic failure it is. It doesn't work. And so I think if there's anything we've learned from all of this, it should have been that.
Yeah. All right. What else you got?
Yeah, pretty fascinating stuff. So one thing I thought it'd be very worthwhile covering, and this is so apropos, they just came up a couple of days ago, so you might be a little late on this. And that's this whole thing. I'm going to flip over and look with regard to the ICD code, ICD-9 codes and vax injury. So if you know about the whole ICD, that's how companies get paid. You go to the doctor, they determine what your issue is, and they have a code, then they fix and they charge for that. Well, there is no code for vax injury. Here we are, I don't know how many years ago, our post-vax thing, when it's completely obvious that the vax causes injuries, and let's face it, causes death. And there's all kinds of studies reflected. It's in the package insert, the side effects that come from this thing, and they still don't have a code associated with that. It's absolutely criminal, and I don't know how much longer that can last. And I think that's one of the things that the current administration will be addressing. And I think RFK is looking at adding an ICD that will address that issue, but that has to happen because it's ruining the lives of so many people. And I know a specific person I know that's recently had all the classic symptoms that come from vax injury, and they've not proactively brought it up not once. It's unbelievable that you can be in great health, have a heart attack, have stroke, have clots, and that not even be addressed. That is incredible. It's just
well. You're talking about the New York Times report on the ACIP, the leaked memo that came out of that. Yeah. Right. Okay. So what I thought was also interesting is that the report isn't, while of course it's pointing out there's no medical code in order to actually record it. There's no long-term studies. The only studies that were ever proposed were 15 days post-vax and then 60 days out. So there's no long-term studies even in the pipeline to study. I mean, you were in pharma, I worked for a minute in clinical. I mean, the most basic thing is you have to do longitudinal studies. You do the pre-studies, and then once it comes out, you continue to study. You do longitudinal studies. None of those longitudinal studies were ever proposed. So they just got the emergency authorization and then moved on, and started cashing checks. But what I think is really cool is that the work group is proposing remedy for vaccine injury, and that is the money. That's the money tree right there. So it's one thing to say, well, we need to have the codes, and well, we need to get the clinical trials going, and well, all of that is true, but the pharma companies care about the money. So if now all of a sudden, and the government, if now all of a sudden there's going to be some sort of financial restitution, if these people have claims, it's going to gut all sorts of things. And then the pharma companies are going to start they're going to start regulating themselves.
Oh yeah. And then you have lawyers. Yeah. When the lawyers have an opportunity to earn some money on it and they start that ambulance chasing, it's going to be on then. I don't see how they can get away with this much longer. It's just amazing. You think about it. This goes back to the power of the media, by the way, that there's a certain percentage of the population that just watches regular media still. Now it's dramatically dropping in terms of its percentage. But here's the thing to remember. That bottom 20% of the population, that I'll call it the unthinking class, the ones that are just governed by unreason and emotion, that's what they watch. So they're not getting any of this information. Then you got to figure another 25% of the population probably just watches that too. So 50% of the population are they completely uninformed, but they're gaslit to boot. They have no clue. So once they start getting a clue and they start turning that emotion towards the ones who've been killing them, that's going to be a really interesting moment.
Yeah.
A really interesting moment. It's
stunning. I've been really pleasantly surprised just how, in general, attention, and again, it's all because of RFK Jr., but in general, there is more attention being paid to general health and wellness, and how, all of this biohacking has become super, super popular. I just think that people are becoming more aware and more interested in I don't know, digging in for their more, for information and kind of doubting authority. I mean, we've seen that, right? That, obviously the media has become less and less credible. Authority in general has become, doctors are less credible to the general population. I mean, so I think it's fantastic. I think it's wonderful. We need to start encourage, and that kind of flies in the face of all these concerns about AI, where, and concerns that we have about kind of this younger generation, where those critical thinking skills are being numbed, I guess, and in some cases not even being formed. But people are taking the initiative. Maybe they haven't gotten it in school. Maybe they haven't figured out how to write a 5-paragraph essay, but they're concerned about their health and wellness. They're becoming aware of vaccine injuries. They've got a friend who, now, has some form of turbo cancer, right? And, or they're fat and they've been dieting for years, and they're finally realizing, well, maybe there's something wrong with my food. Maybe there's some, maybe it's not me.
I had 2 pancreatic cancer cases in my personal network in the last 3 days. Are you kidding me? And pancreatic cancer used to be like something you hear off in the distance once in a blue moon. I mean, you never knew anybody who had it. It was deadly. And now it's every time you turn around. I don't need a study to know something's sideways.
Yeah.
And what's changed in the last 5 years? The only thing that's changed is, we can't say the word, but we all know what that word is. Not to mention this dramatic rise in all kinds of stuff that you never used to hear about. And the fact that they keep hiding this is just so immoral.
I think that what the COVID vaccine did was it kind of got everybody focused on one culprit. For years and years, my kids are 18 and 21, and so for the last, let's say 30 years, we've been injecting our kids with all these immunizations that have been spread out across the whole population, and they've been slow. It's the peanut allergy and all this, autism and all of these ADHD, all these things have been very, very slow moving, whereas the vax was so quick and deadly. We noticed it.
Yeah.
But it's been
I mean, you can see the injections. But you're right. They've been doing this for a long time, and people are finally waking up. And the same with the food industry. There's no way the food is the same as we ate in the 70s. I mean, you used to think, the reason why I have so many fat kids is because they all lay around and do anything. Well, there's a percentage of that, but I don't think it explains the whole thing. I mean, it's the food is not food. It has all kinds of stuff in it that all kinds of additives and preservatives that have never been tested in the human body. Some of this stuff is used to kill bugs on plants, and we're ingesting this stuff. And so we have a lot of kids with disorders that you got childhood diabetes. I'm talking kids with type 2 diabetes is like crazy, like through the roof. Kids with hypertension, kids with high cholesterol. These are things that, when you're 65 or 70, you get, and now we're getting them when they're 15 or 20, not to mention kids having strokes and heart attacks.
Well, and you have young people getting liver disease that they're calling it actually like non-alcohol related liver disease. And the media is young people getting it. So
and the media is trying to normalize it. I mean, it used to be as somebody young, let's say you were under 50, and let's say movie star athlete, when weird happened, there was all kinds of speculation. Maybe they were doing drugs, maybe they were doing this, maybe they were doing that. Now there's like zero intellectual curiosity about it, like none. I can't remember, it was another star. I don't watch TV anymore. There's another star who's like around 50, just got something and then died. No curiosity. Oh, too bad. So sad. Such is 50 and he's gone. What? I mean, you look at the movie stars of past generations. These people that are in the 80s, 90s, and 100s. I mean, what's his name?
And they were smoking and drinking and doing all sorts of stuff.
Oh, they're still making it to 80 and 90. I mean, what's his name? Henry Fonda, those guys. I mean, nobody was dying in their 50s and 40s and 30s, but that's all the time now. And we're supposed to just accept that's the new normal.
Yeah. I don't know. I
It's,
think people are, a lot of people are asking questions. A lot of people are waking up.
well, it's good to see them waking up. And speaking of that, I think I forgot to mention this. We should just touch on this whole spat with, what's his name? I'm looking this up real quick. Was it last night? This whole deal went down with uh, Joe Kent. Did you catch that?
Yeah. Yeah.
The Joe Kent
Yeah.
defection. So it's near done in my heart because I live in the district where he ran for Congress twice, and quite frankly, I was quite a huge fan of his. My son's got pictures with him. Right? I mean, he campaigned right in the park around the neighborhood for us. So
Yeah. Green Beret. I mean,
it was really, and I'm quite sure that election was stolen from him. But it was really disappointing. But on the other hand, it gives one good reason to stop and pause and let's engage our intellect around this thing. So if I recall, kind of the issue was he decided that Israel talked Trump into going into this Iran war, and therefore he couldn't stomach it. So that's kind of the word on the street. I've not seen any media since then. This all happened like in the last 24 hours, right? And I've been really busy the last couple of days, but this is just high level. And I picked up some of this on talk radio on my drive to Seattle today. And I guess there's been a giant spat between Meg Ellie and Mark Levin over this whole thing. And I can't remember the other guy who's a big podcaster. And they've been going after each other too. Tucker Carlson. I mean, they have been going after each other. They've been going after each other like leftists. I'm talking name calling and stuff. I mean, I heard Mark Levin just like ripping Megyn to shreds.
Well, Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro have both been going after Megyn and Tucker and a bunch of those guys. I mean, they're just like weirdly rabid warmonger, like weird.
It's rabid. And what I would say is this is a reminder that this is why you don't hang your followership on a personality. You might look at somebody and say, these are the things, he gave great reason for that. And so, I like what he said there. That makes sense. But that doesn't mean I agree with them over here. It's just like me with, say, Martin Luther King or RFK or JFK. I think those guys did a lot of great things. And there were a lot of things I'm like, I'm a little sideways on that over there, right? And that's the mindset you have to have with all of these guys. To be a 100% buy-in follower of just whatever they say, that's what I'm going to believe. You can't do that. And I just think it's bad decorum on their part. We were supposed to be the party of reason. So if you disagreed with each other, then give the reasons. And we should, hey, we're also the party of free speech. So that's okay if you guys want to have a cat fight. But let's have it like William F. Buckley and Thomas Sowell used to have it back in the day, and Milton Friedman, right? When guys could sit down and like have a cigar and like just rap it out, right? But let's not behave like leftists. And that's the part that's got me really embarrassed for them. I mean, the name calling and all of that, man, you're supposed to have tattoos, blue hair, and and be screaming at the street. We're not supposed to do that stuff. That's not supposed to be how we behave. So let me say that one part, and then I'll say the other part. And this is just my quickie on Kurt. I don't know what his rationale was for saying this about Trump. I think it's dangerous to go to the the reasons why is because it's so crazy to think that he would be being followed by the nose by Israel. This guy's not letting anybody tell him anything what to do. So why would we think that? That's number one. And number two, and this is the baseline thing for all of it, there's lots of motivations to go do this, and you're never going to take money off the equation, by the way. So anybody who says, oh, it's all about the money. Well, of course it's about the money. It's like, just like the stupidest argument in the world, right? Like that's like a childish thing to even say. It's what's going to be used with the money. And here's the thing. If Iran gets nukes, that changes the equation for the entire world. This is different from North Korea having nukes. All North Korea has nukes does is we have to drop them food every now and then, right? They don't control any natural resources. This country is sitting on the Straits of Hormuz, like 3 or 4 other straits that control something like 70, 80% of the world's commerce. You can't do that. That's number one. And number two, can you imagine a day where you're sitting in your home and look at what Israel puts up with all the time? There's missile attacks all the time. Now, it doesn't take that much long to go from having a nuclear weapon to developing the capability to throw it over the ocean, particularly if you have the money to do so. And that's why the money is so important, because Iran sits at a place where they can take the money, buy the stuff, and of course, China and Russia would be all behind that. And pretty soon, we're having you call it air raid sirens at night, like the bombing of London during World War II. That's why we need to be doing this. Now we can argue all day about how we do this, and how far we go, and whether we lose troops on the ground. I mean, all of that's all valid stuff. But to just make the case that I was just doing it because of Israel, I just think that's pretty sophomoric. Is probably the best thing.
Well, his statement said that he was relying on national security intelligence that Tulsi Gabbard had provided, and some of our international allies had also provided, and that there was no imminent threat. That's what he said, is that's why he stepped away, and nobody's been able to provide substantive proof that there was an imminent threat. There's been a lot of statements, but nobody in the nobody in national security or even our international partners are saying substantively. In fact, I heard that Bill O'Reilly, I heard a clip. Apparently he was being interviewed by Glenn Beck, and they were talking about, I guess Bill O'Reilly had received some information from the White House that there was intelligence out there that Iran supposedly was on the brink of building 10 nuclear capable weapons. And so that was the imminent threat. Well, then there have been reporters going after, was it like the Israeli ambassador to the United States? They've also gone and talked to Netanyahu. There have been very pointed questions asked of these people. What was the imminent threat? Not a single person has said what Bill O'Reilly said. Everybody has gone back and said, well, for 47 years, there's all this, history of, they're dangerous, they're this, they're that, they're this, or that. But that's not an imminent threat, right? Well, that's a threat, but that's not an imminent threat. And so that's what he was saying. That's what he wrote in his statement, is why he was stepping away, is that nobody's provided proof of an imminent threat. So, honestly, my position. I'm not in favor of this war. I'm not in favor of any war. But at the least, could you have waited until after the midterms? Like, we can't afford to lose things. Like, could you not have waited a few months?
Those are all valid. Those are valid. And let me give you the counter to that. First of all, these things are a level of classification that's got to be unbelievable. So why in the world do you think we think that we're going to get that information? So when we
if Bill O'Reilly is going on Glenn Beck and saying that he's got intel from the White House, and he says this, and then you go out and you're asking these high-ranking people, if Iran was nuclear capable, you should tell us that, because the approval ratings for this war are looking like we're going to lose the House and the Senate.
Let me finish my thought. So okay. None of what you said matters one iota if they get a nuke. Doesn't matter one bit. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, into my earlier point, these things are at a level of classification that why would we think that someone like Bill O'Reilly has all that information? I would think they know zilch. Just like when we dropped the atomic bomb on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, we didn't run around telling the press, that, we're going to do this because we got an imminent threat. And do we wait till they're capable of doing it? I think we have a unique window, and this is just my guess, because heavens knows, I don't know either. So I'm just speculating based on what countries do historically or what they should do. We've got a unique window of opportunity to go in here and finish the job. China is super weak, can't do anything about it. And they've demonstrated their weakness because they couldn't do anything about Venezuela, couldn't do anything about Cuba. And they're super weak economically. And they've even stopped bothering Taiwan, which tells you how weak they are. Their weapons and stuff is like junk. Russia has proven that they are terrible. They can't take out Ukraine in spite of having 3 times the population. Their weapons were given to Venezuela and they couldn't do anything with it. So those countries this is like a unique opportunity to handle this and get it done. We've been putting up with this for like 40 or 50 years with these guys killing and threatening our own troops, our own everything, America and other countries over these years. This is a unique opportunity to take care of it without any interference from anywhere else. And to me, that's good enough. In terms of the election, yeah, I can see obviously that's something that's been weighed and determined to be worth the risk. And the thought being, I'm guessing, that they can get this handled and be done before the elections. To me, just in my mind, and again, this is just me, whenever you stop, it's a win because it's been degraded significantly. I think the ideal thing would be that we get a government in there that's not killing 60,000 Iranian citizens, by the way, which is another thing everyone seems to have forgotten. 6 months ago, we had our panties in the knot worried about the Ukrainians, but now suddenly we've forgotten about that and we're moved on to this. But Iranian laws apparently don't care. So if all of that can happen, and then this thing is fixed for once and for all, because you can imagine if Democrats get in power, they're not going to do a damn thing about these nukes there. And I'm pretty sure that's the calculus in the mind of a Trump. So that's where I sit. I hope we win the midterms, but there are some things that trump that. And if getting those guys to the point where they can't have another nuke for another 40 years, which Israel, by the way, took care of that 40, 50 years ago, and everybody screamed about it, while behind closed doors, they were clapping, thank you, Israel. But nobody wanted to say it out loud. They saved us 40 years of headache. And here we are back having to deal with it again. We didn't finish the job then. And thanks to Jimmy Carter, here we are dealing with it now. So anyway, there's my position. I'm thrilled we're doing it. And I hope we finish the job. But if we don't finish the job, we're better off than we were 6 weeks ago.
I don't know.
And we can disagree. That's fine.
Yeah,
that's the great thing about being conservative. We can have reasoned discussion like this, not hate each other's guts like the other side. Which unfortunately Megyn Kelly and Mark Levin and all these guys have forgotten how to do. That's the shame of it. And if the guy wants to quit his job, I think that's an honorable thing to do. Great, quit. That's better than staying there and stabbing him behind the back like they did in the previous administration when Trump was in office. I think it's wonderful he quit. Say your reasons why, quit. We'll replace you and move on. If you work for somebody, then you're in their regime. You do what they say. That's the nature of how things work. If I'm a captain in the Air Force, I don't get to tell a general, I'm not doing your order. I can quit or go get an Article 15 or whatever, but I'm not going to undo the order. Yeah. So I think it's great to quit. I'm just thrilled he quit. I hate that.
Yeah, I'm not thrilled he quit because I liked him. I liked Tulsi. I like that Dan Bongino. He quit. But I wish that there was more clarity. And yeah, but when you're in war, things are very cloudy, and there's all sorts of propaganda. There's all sorts of rhetoric on everywhere. So it's hard to know what's real, what's not. Like you said, we're not sitting in on those classified briefings, but when we were ramping up for other wars, nobody was shy about saying exactly what the risk was. And but Trump's a different kind of president. He's he goes in and blam, he's getting things done, whereas other presidents were more cautious. So I hope that you're right. I hope that that's what's going on. Tulsi's made a statement today, spoke to the press today, where she did, her assessment is that while we have done significant damage, Iran is nowhere near giving up. They are digging in, and they've got the resources and the manpower to put up a substantial fight. So this is not going to be a couple weeks, a couple months like it was originally pitched. This is going to be years of.
I don't know that. I don't know that that's true.
Yeah, I guess we don't.
I don't know that that's true. We have never had a more successful. You look at what's happened here. We've degraded them like 90%, 95%, and lost 15 troops or something in the meantime. That is incredible. And you look at what we did in Venezuela. That is incredible. So, and we're approaching this in a way that we've never approached these things before, because we have technology to do it in a way that we've never been able to do before. Back in the 80s and 90s, we couldn't be as precision as we are now. Now, is that to say, hey, I'm not sitting here saying there's a 100% guarantee that I'm right here, by the way. I'm just making the point that you can't look at yesterday and say it's going to be the same today because the technology is different, the players are different, everything's different.
Well, there's been some discussion about, what we've done is again, you have to remember that, you've got spokespeople that are, riling up support for the effort that they're launching, right? So our people are going to be saying things that make us sound like we're winning and that everything is great. Their people are going to be saying all the things that make them sound great, right? So you have to see through that fog as well, that everybody's got an agenda. And so the idea that, we've destroyed 90%, but we've destroyed 90% of what we saw. But we already know that there's a tremendous amount going on underneath, like literally underneath. So there's just a lot more to it that we're going to continue to find out. This was originally explained as like in and out. That's not happening, right? They mobilized 2,500 troops. We've had 14 people die. There's things happening.
I didn't hear this in and out you're hearing, right? I mean, I never heard in and out. I heard it's going to be as short as we can make it. I didn't hear any in and out though.
I think he said he was going to be it was like a matter of days. I think that's how he originally pitched it.
I did not hear that.
Okay, I'll go back
like 2-3 months. Right. Yeah. Because there's no way. You're right. You're not getting out in 2 or 3 days. I did not hear that.
Okay.
Now I think the objective is to get this thing done before summer, and I think that makes sense. But again, I'd make the point that it's already been a success because you dramatically degraded them from where they were. I'd like to see a complete success would be a replacement of the government, and those guys are completely out of there. They've already been decapitated. Like 2 of the leaders now dead. 60 or 70 of leadership.
Yeah.
What are we going to call success, by the way? We decapitated the entire government. I think one thing, and a useful thing to look at is you look at Japan at the end of World War II. Japan, with the Bushido concept, was not going to surrender. And at bottom line, 2 atomic bombs were dropped on them, and they still weren't going to surrender. A lot of people don't realize that. What finally caused them surrender, I think, at the end of the day, was the Soviet Union was going to declare war, was going to invade them, and they thought better to surrender to the Americans than to surrender to the Soviet Union, because we would likely recognize the emperor, and they never would. But they were not going to surrender. Do you realize there was an assassination attempt on the emperor at the last second to keep him from making that radio announcement? See, a lot of people have forgotten this stuff. When you're dealing with a culture that has a no surrender concept, and that's the same thing with these guys. Remember, they were willing to die. They strapped their women up with bombs all day long. This is not a Western culture. So the people running this are going to quit. So if you're looking for a 100% end, that's why you have to get 100% surrender, which is what happened with Japan. Now, I don't know if we're...
that's what Trump has asked for, unconditional surrender.
Yeah, that's what we're asking for, unconditional surrender. I don't think we're going to get that from them, which means you're going to have to wipe out their ruling class, or the mullahs, pretty much, and the people that support them. And the Iranian people are going to have to figure out how to rise up and do it. And that's the part that I can't figure out for the life of me, how you're going to do that. Because it's not like their citizens have a Second Amendment and they have guns. So you got to be running around who believe in this stuff. How do they do it? I don't know. It'd be really interesting to see how that's the part that fascinates me, is how do you play that part out? But as an American, the first thing to think is, have we degraded the likelihood that they can lob bombs across the ocean and get a nuclear weapon? The answer to that is 100% yes. Has it been eliminated 100%? No. But if we can create another 40-year window before they can get back there again, like the Israelis did for us back in the 80s, then that's better off than we were.
Well, we will continue to monitor progress and see how, see which direction it's going. I think it's going to be unclear for a while, but we're in it. We're in it. So here we go.
And this is something that how many presidents have kicked the can down the, let's not fit. They've been kicking this can down the road for how long? and Biden and Obama helped them get more money so they can buy more of this stuff. So, we finally got a guy who's dealing with it, and we don't like it, but it is what it is. Somebody's got to be the cleanup man.
I know. I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose the presidency and over this right now. I ugh. So
No, I get it, but it's the only way to find out what happens if we do nothing is we do nothing, and then we get like, so there's a trade-off. It's kind of like buying life insurance. We hate buying life insurance. You hope you never have to use it, but you pay the freight, right?
Yeah. Yep. All right.
Well, that was fun. That was fun and passionate.
Let's change gears. Let's be more friendly.
We're friendly.
Hey, I read an article that is actually something that's been on my mind, and it was in the Business Insider, and it was about how to use it. It was this warning basically on like how to use AI without getting dumber. Did you see this at all? But
I'm afraid I'll get dumber.
Okay, well, I'm going to read it for you, and I'll just give you the clip notes. So I'll take the hit for you. Okay. Anyway, so I mean, I use AI I literally use it last night I was sitting there and I got an iOS update on my phone where they installed or gave me the option of like quickly toggling on some sort of like spam detection. And I was like, heck yeah, I want that. Well, guess what happens? I get full screening on my phone. And so I missed a whole bunch of phone calls. Some of them I'm like actually expecting, but so I was like, oh shoot, how do I turn this thing off? So I went into ChatGPT, and I was like, I just got an update on my phone, right? And it talks me through everything: recipes, vacations, exercise programs. How do I get more protein in my diet? I use AI for everything, but I also use it for work. So, when I'm writing a blog, or I'm converting a podcast to a blog, or I'm trying to come up with social media, story ideas, or I'm trying to like summarize a white paper, I'm using AI all the time. And all of that is fine. But the question is, how do you use AI without getting dumber? How are you using AI to replace critical thinking skills? And so there's this concern, of course, that people are doing this. I think that's a very valid concern. But in particular, are young people who've not even had the opportunity to develop those foundational critical thinking skills. Are they then skipping straight to AI? In the same way that, I was listening to a preschool center owner who was talking about how, kids don't know how to read and write. They don't know how to like write their names. They don't know how to recognize they can't do like very, very basic math, 1 + 1 = 2. You used to be able to do that in preschool, but now because everybody's on their phone, these little kids are on an iPhone or an iPad, right? So technology has replaced thinking, critical thinking, and formational lessons.
Yes.
So what this guy was saying, which I'm going to pay attention to, you don't need to, Don, because you don't use AI in the way I do, but it's the 10-80-80 rule. So I've been implementing this. I'm actually proud to say I was already implementing it, but 10% is original thought, is human generated original thought, rationale, questioning. You come up with it. Then you allow AI to do 80%. So maybe that's coding, maybe that's, revising a text or some story that you've written or whatever. And then at the end, you do the 10% revision, making sure it's valid, checking all your facts, making sure it's functional, all of that stuff. And if you do the 10-80-10 rule, then you'll at least be managing AI properly. What do you think about that, Don?
Well,
is that good enough?
I think it has legs. Well, here's my guess anyway. So I guess I used it a little bit. Let me tell you how I use it, I guess. So I have a lot of historical knowledge and things. So I do these writings, right? But it's not like I remember every single detail. So I might say, for example, I'm trying to think of an example. Let's see, let's say the Versailles Treaty. So what was the date of the Versailles Treaty? Well, I can't remember the date. I know it's about a certain year. I can go over Versailles Treaty. So it's not thinking for me. It's giving me a fact that I can use to plug into something. or was Alexander Kerensky, head of the provisional government before the Bolsheviks took power. Am I remembering that right? Get back. Oh yeah, he absolutely was, right? So I find it very useful for that kind of stuff because I remember a lot of stuff, but when you get to the minutia, it's really cool to be able to push a button and not have to do the research, and there it is, right? What was the name of the street that the Archduke Franz Ferdinand got shot on, right? I mean, I can't recall that kind of stuff anymore. It's the something key though. I do remember that much, and they'll come back and they'll tell you that. So for those kinds of things, it's very useful. You could even plug in, was there a conspiracy to kill such and such? Because I think there was. And it'll say, yes, there was, or no, there wasn't. And it either confirms or now you might wonder to yourself, well, because it could lie. But so far, I've not had any issues with that. It's that part of it's been very good. And I've done some pretty arcane stuff, like the guy who ratted out Leonidas at the Battle of 300 at Thermopylae. Now, this is like 2,000 years ago, right? And it came up with a guy's name, Hippolytus, I think was his name, right? Which I vaguely recall because I was like really into that stuff in like grade school. But it's pretty cool to not have to. Can you imagine how much of a headache it would have been to find that information before this?
So, well, did you just put that into a Google search, or how'd you find that?
I just put it in the Google search.
Oh, okay. So okay, all right. So you're using you're assuming that Google search is AI, that you're treating it like AI. Okay.
Yeah. It seems to behave that way.
Well, yes and no. So when AI gives you an output, and let's say that they've inserted some statistics or some conclusions of a research study or a summary of a study or of a white paper or something like that, you have to go back and double check that, because they have, I think, I can't remember what it's called, like ghost phantom conclusions or phantom figures, but it will literally just make things up, because the large language model, it's predictive. It's not actually, obviously it's not doing any real reasoning, but it's doing predictive. And so it will make things up because it thinks it makes sense that this would be the right figure or this might be the conclusion, but it's not necessarily true. So you do have to go back to those original source documents and just double check all these things, or go to the whatever, the EPA, and check what percentage emissions, blah blah blah, from year to year. So
and that seems, Google seems to do that pretty well. Like, I'll put something in, it'll give me, okay, who made the B-2 bomber back in World War II, and how many B-52s did they make? And they'll go back and they'll give me like research documents and papers from the archives. It'll give you like an answer. Then it gives you archive documents, and that's pretty cool stuff too.
Yeah. Then you can go back and read it. But anyway, yeah.
So
well, if our conversations get more and more simplistic, Don, you can tell that AI is making me dumber. You just call it out, Leslie. This week, downward slide. Let's go, girl.
Yeah. So, audience out there, Lori, and I see Lori, are, you let us know if we start sounding dumb.
Call me out. I'm okay with it.
Because I think the charm of this format is you get the banter, and people like the authenticity of it. Instead of some talking head of the media who's just reading off a bunch of points that they really haven't done any research on this. They don't know anything about it. And if you turn to channels, they're all parroting the exact same phrase. Yeah. And I remember Rush Limbaugh pointed that out about 25 years ago. I was like, my goodness, he's right. They're literally reading from the same script. It's a scary thing.
Yeah. Well, talk about the same script. You're following Nick Shirley and all of the that young kid that's been doing all the exposure of the corruption in Minnesota and California?
Yes.
Okay. So he's been out in California for the last couple weeks, and he was here in San Diego with Amy Reichert, who's a local, I guess you could say, advocate an
Yeah.
activist. She's run for office, but she hasn't been successful yet.
Mhm.
But he's done like a 40-minute video in LA.
Uh-huh.
He's focusing on hospice centers and
Mhm.
preschools in LA. And he has concluded that there has been 1,000% increase in hospices opening up in the LA area in just the last 2 years. 1,000% just in LA. He's like, what are all these people dying from? Why do we have right? Like, this is, you want to talk about an epidemic?
Yeah.
Like, people are dying left and right. Like, there's like zombie. It's going to be zombie land, right? So 1,000%. One out of every $10 spent in America on home health care is spent in LA.
Yeah, I saw that somewhere. It was 18% of all Medicare home health building in America comes from one California county. That's LA County.
Well, he's
36
saying
other
1 in 10,
states.
which is higher, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Here's there's LA County has 1,923 hospice providers, more than 36 other states combined. I'm just pulling this thing up and looking at it here. 33 times more than Florida, which has got a bazillion senior citizens. One doctor says, it's the clinical director has 45 hospices. You can't even, the level of fraud in that state. I honestly don't see how can these guys run for office.
You know what, Dawn? All I have to say is I missed the boat. I mean, somehow I should have been opening up hospices and preschools and my life would be set. I mean, instead, I'm like the dumb schmo going to work every day and paying my taxes.
See, you know what all this points out to me, and I've thought this for a while now. So our representatives, meaning Congress and senators, our representatives are representative of us. And I may have said that, I can't remember if we talked about this before, but they don't have the same moral code as the rest of us. They do stuff that the average citizen just wouldn't do. They're not representative of us. And one of those things is they've all gone to college. Well, if you look at it as a percentage of the population, number of people who have a degree, it's still a small number. I don't know what the number is, but I bet it's less than 20%. I'll bet you. Because we swim in the soup where everybody has college degrees. The vast majority of the American citizens do not have a college degree, nor have they gone to college. So they've not been communized like that cadre of people who've gone to college, number one. And number two, remember, these legislators are almost like 95% of them are lawyers.
Yeah.
And like 95% of law schools are run by Democrats. And they're not even like JFK Democrats. These are like progressive communists. Those are the people, and that's on both sides of the aisle. Maybe the Republican side isn't as bad, but we know what the other side of the aisle is. And as a result, we get this level of lack of integrity. For example, we all know the shopping boys and girls and all that. This is like 90-10 issues, right? Or the better yet, the SAVE Act. That's like an 80-20, 90-10. Everybody, as we say at home, everybody is in favor of voter ID. And yet this is actually a dogfight. That tells you the lack of integrity and the lack of representation. They don't represent the people that voted for them. And that's even the Democrats. This should be an automatic that you got to have voter ID, you got to be a citizen to vote. And yet this is going to be some kind of a mudslinging dogfight wire right down to the end of the thing, right? Which tells you the infinite lack of integrity of these people who are in office. Which goes back to, of course, as I always say, the moral code. The citizenry is not as moral as it used to be, and the representatives are way worse than they used to be. And at the end of the day, that's what you got to fix. Yeah. This system will not work with an immoral people, as so eloquently put by John Adams, 250 years ago. You fix the morality, and you don't need all this stuff.
Yeah, yeah. But, you still need to color in the lines. We still need the boundaries. We still need the laws. We still need, people who are going to, hold up justice. But I just, yeah, I don't,
Well,
I don't know.
Shakespeare was right. Shoot the lawyers. He had a solution 100 years ago. Oh my goodness. We got to keep having fun, my friend.
You always need a good lawyer in the family, though, Don. You
Yeah,
need a
yeah,
good
just
lawyer
one.
and a good doctor, and then
Yeah,
everything else just comes
yeah,
together.
yeah. Shoot the rest of them. Find the one honest one, and good luck with that, by the way. Just
That's
shoot the
right.
rest of
Yeah.
them. What was that? I can't remember the name of that TV show where the guy was finding drugs in Albuquerque. Um, uh,
Breaking
Breaking
Bad.
Bad. So when the lawyer says, "Yeah," he said, "You need a lawyer. You need a criminal lawyer." No, I mean a
A
criminal
criminal
lawyer.
lawyer.
Lawyer. One of the best lines ever.
Yeah.
All right.
Saul was
Hey,
good.
my friend, I think we've reached the end. That was like the fastest hour ever, by the way.
That's because we were just entertaining ourselves. Yeah.
We are. I hope you guys are entertained, but whether you are or not, we had fun. So thanks for joining.
We're coming back next week. So
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, any closing thoughts for you, Leslie?
No, I do want to make sure that I want to remind you that, and I guess we should remind everybody that, this is a time that it's important that we all just make time for prayer. All the things that are going on around the world, in our country, in our cities, in our personal lives. It's important that we push things aside long enough that we can reconnect and really just get on our knees and pray, and keep our hearts focused on the right things. So that's what I'm doing.
That is such a great thing to say, because we don't have the answers at the end of the day. I mean, none of us knows what's going to happen. And the only way we've ever gotten through any of these problems at the end of the day was through the power of prayer. So you are 100% correct. I'm hoping these church bells ring again in another minute. All
Just a
right.
punctuation point.
Yes, exactly. So amen. Amen to that, Lori. So you guys have a great night. Leslie, I've always enjoyed it. And you guys be good. And we'll see you next week.
All righty.
Good night,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.
All right.